Alright guys, I do apologize. I got a system update, and you guys that are used to the channel know with this crazy phone that every time I get a system update, it cuts whatever I'm doing off. So I intended for it to be just a part one, just 30 minutes straight. But guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to read this one 30 minutes straight. How about that? System update. You're not going to mess up these people blessing with getting the word, whatever this is for them. So anyway, guys, it's going to be 2 videos today. Really, it's supposed to be 1, but it's going to be 2 videos today because I'm just going to ride out these 30 minutes. And then, like I said, Wednesday, I'll come back on and we'll read as much as we can in 30 minutes. But anyway, so, this is what we was on. Check out part 1 if you missed it. So one conclusive finding of these studies was that marriage between a man and a woman is the central social building block in every human society without exception. It is also true that monogamous lifelong marriage is the universal cultural norm. Of course, some people will deviate from this practice, as in polygamy, which is still found in a few non-literal cultures, and serial monogamy, which has become common practice in some Western cultures. But these exceptions do not erase the cultural norm of lifetime monogamy from the human psyche. In fact, in spite of the widespread acceptance of divorce in the United States over the past 40 years, a recent poll of never married singles ages 20 to 30 indicates that 87% plan to marry only once. Many of these people have seen their parents divorce, and that is not what they want for themselves. The social institution of marriage is first and foremost a covenant relationship in which a man and a woman pledge themselves to each other for a lifetime partnership. In the biblical account of creation, God's expressed desire is that the two will become one flesh. At the heart of marriage, therefore, is the idea of unity. It is the opposite of aloneness. Again, from the creation account in Genesis, it is abundantly clear that God did not intend for men and women to live alone. Something deep within the man cries out for companionship with the woman, and the woman has a similar desire for intimacy with the man. Marriage is designed to satisfy this deep search for intimacy. Thus, marriage is not simply a relationship. It is an intimate relationship that encompasses all aspects of life: intellectual, emotional, social, spiritual, and physical. In a marriage relationship, a husband and wife share life with each other in the deepest possible way. They view themselves as a unified team, not as 2 individuals who happen to be living in close proximity. Because the desire and drive for intimacy are at the very heart of marriage, the individuals involved become troubled about their relationship when such intimacy is not attained. Marriage is also a purposeful relationship. All research indicates that an intimate marriage provides the safest and most productive climate for raising children, for example. But procreation is not the only purpose of marriage. Each person is also endowed by God with certain latent possibilities. The partnership of marriage is an ideal environment for nurturing and developing these gifts and abilities. As the writer of the ancient book of Ecclesiastes observes, 2 are better than 1. If one falls down, his friend can help him up, but pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Every married couple has experienced the reality of this principle. 2 are better than 1. Husbands and wives are designed to complement each other. When the man is weak, his wife is strong. When she stumbles, he is there to pick her up. Life is easier when 2 hearts and minds are committed to working together to face the challenges of the day. So now we're on the essential nature of marriage. And let me see, could I kind of fix this a little bit, because it seemed like my neck. So let me put this back some. Okay, so the essential nature of marriage. So it's committed, united, intimate, purposeful, and complementary. I'm going to keep it like this so you guys can see, in case if you want to, So after 40 plus years of marriage, I look back and realize that many of the things I have accomplished would never have come to fruition were it not for the encouragement and help of my wife. This is what he's saying. And again, I'm sorry for the background noise, guys. I'm part. I'd also like to think that she has accomplished more with her life because of my support. This brings me a great deal of satisfaction. Together, we have committed ourselves to seek and follow God's plan for our lives. We help each other discover our unique giftedness and encourage each other to use these abilities to serve God and to promote good in the world. As we do this, our lives point others to God and we accomplish our highest end. Our marriage relationship enhances the effectiveness with which we serve God. King David captured the vision for us in Psalms 34 verse 3. Glorify the Lord with me, let us exalt his name together. From a biblical perspective, the purpose of life is not to accomplish our own objectives. The purpose of life is to know God and to bring glory and honor to his name. For most people, marriage enhances the possibility of achieving this objective. So now we're talking about adapting to the changing seasons. Marriage relationships are constantly changing. Attitudes shift, emotions fluctuate, and the way spouses treat each other ebbs and flows between loving and not so loving. Sometimes change is beyond our control. Is that rain? I'm sorry, guys. I felt like it was raining on me. If it is, I'm going to put my window up. For example, when Ben's wife Nancy was told she had cancer, the diagnosis changed the fabric of their lives and their relationship. They could adapt to the situation, but they couldn't control it. The same was true of Trisha and her husband Rob, a member of the National Guard. When his unit was activated, he was sent into a war zone half a world away. Rob and Trisha could adapt, but the circumstances were beyond their control. When it became clear to John and Carol that her mother could no longer live alone, they had to respond to a change that they couldn't control. Life is full of unanticipated changes. Our only choice as couples is in how we will respond. Other changes we create for ourselves, but sometimes with unexpected consequences. When Ken and Melinda moved to Kansas City after living near her family in Chicago for 10 years, it created numerous changes that they now had to face together. The decisions we make regarding vocation, child rearing, education, civic and church involvement, and other areas of life create changes that affect our marriage relationships. The manner in which couples process these changes will determine the quality of their marriages. In the natural world, the 4 seasons are created by certain inevitable changes that occur as the earth turns on its axis and revolves around the sun. Likewise, the changes we face in life and the way we process and respond to them create the seasons of marriage. The birth of a baby, the death of a loved one, illness, in-laws, getting a job, losing a job, the demands of a job, travel, vacations, weight gain, weight loss, financial ups and downs, moving, staying, depression, disagreements, moods, teenagers, aging bodies, aging parents, hobbies, habits, sex, impotence, infidelity. All these are examples of situations and circumstances that put pressure on the marriage and demand a response. If we respond well, in harmony with our spouse, we can keep our marriage in spring or summer. If we don't respond well, or if our response clashes with our spouse's response, we can feel the chill of autumn or be thrust into the icy cold of winter, sometimes before we know what hit us. Some changes, such as sexual infidelity, strike at the very heart of a marriage. Other changes are simply a natural part of life, such as illness, aging, or a new job. Our response to change consists of emotions, attitudes, and actions. The combination of these 3 factors will determine which season our marriage is in at any given time. The thesis of this book is that the natural seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall, provide us with an apt analogy for the changes that occur in our marriage relationships. As we experience life through the 5 senses, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, and touching, we feel emotions, develop attitudes, and take action. The interweaving of our emotions, attitudes, and actions create the quality of our relationship in the various seasons of marriage. It has become popular in Western culture over the past 40 years to exalt emotions as the guiding light that determines our actions. After more than 30 years of counseling couples, I am convinced this is a misguided notion. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that emotions are not important. Emotions tell us that something is wrong or right in a relationship, but emotions must lead to reason, and reason must be guided by truth if we are to take constructive action. We must not short circuit the process and jump straight from emotions to action without the benefit of reason. Many couples who have done this have found themselves in winter when they could have ended up in spring or summer. And then he have it again. Emotions moderated by reason, guided by truth equals constructive action. So I'll leave it like that for a second in case if y'all want to take notes. All right, let's keep reading. Let's begin our journey by defining the 4 seasons of marriage. In the next 4 chapters, we will look at the common emotions, attitudes, and actions that create a particular season. We will do this by visiting with couples who have chosen to communicate to me the joys and sorrows of their season of marriage. Names and places have been changed to protect the privacy of the couples involved, but the stories are real and for the most part are told in the words of the people themselves. Perhaps you will discover yourself in one of these seasons of marriage. If not, the marital seasons profile at the end of part 1 will help you identify the season of your marriage. In the second part of the book, I will introduce 7 practical ideas for weaving your emotions, attitudes, and actions together to move from one season to another. In part 3, we'll recap the 7 strategies and answer some of the common questions I've been asked about the 4 seasons of marriage. Finally, to help you use this book in a small group setting or to facilitate your own understanding, we've included a study guide intended to promote conversation about the 4 seasons of marriage and the 7 strategies. My hope is that all these features will help you and your spouse enhance the seasons of your marriage. So my friend had this book and she highlighted some. I began reading. I think I'm on spring, so I read a lot of what I'm reading to you guys, but again, I want to go back over and read it because it doesn't hurt for me to learn this stuff as well, and also just because we're reading this together as well as far as the YouTube channel, but I will be like, continuing forward. But she highlighted this, so I'm just going to read it. So why begin with winter? So we're reading about winter. I might begin there because that is where the calendar begins, with January. Although it is not true everywhere, January and February in North Carolina are the coldest months. I guess that's where he lives at. That's when it snows and there are ice storms. It's when people wear gloves and overcoats and when they go sledding in the streets and skiing at Sugar Mountain. Winter is when children look forward to being out of school so they can play in the snow. It is when only the pansies are blooming and the bears are fast asleep. But to be honest, that is not why I want to begin with winter. Now, you guys could just read for 1 second. Please let me get some more water. I don't know why, but I've been feeling in my spirit for the last couple of weeks that this book is going to be a blessing to a lot of people. A lot of people's lives. So I start with winter because most of the people who have been in my counseling office over the past 30 years have come when their marriage was in the season of winter. Not many come to see me when their marriage is enjoying a time of summer. It is the coldness of winter that drives them to my office. In the natural world, at least in North America, we speak of cold winters, harsh winters, snowy winters, icy winters, and bitter winters. In short, winter means difficulty. Life is much harder in the winter than it is in the summer. Winter marriages are characterized by coldness, harshness, and bitterness. The dreams of spring are covered with layers of ice, and the weather forecast calls for more freezing rain. If the husband and wife have a conversation, it is merely about logistics. Who will do what and when? If they try to talk about their relationship, it typically ends in an argument that goes unresolved. Some couples simply live in a cold silence. Essentially, they lead independent lives though they live in the same house. Each spouse blames the other for the coldness of the relationship. What brings a couple to the winter season of marriage? In a word, rigidity. The unwillingness to consider the other person's perspective and to work toward a meaningful compromise. All couples face difficulties, and all couples have differences. These differences may center on money, in-laws, religion, or any other area of life. Couples who fail to negotiate these differences will find themselves in the middle of winter, a season of marriage created not by the difficulties of life, but by the manner in which a couple responds to those difficulties. When one or both marriage partners insist on my way or not at all, they are moving their marriage toward winter. Winter may last a month, or it may last 30 years. It may begin 3 months after the wedding or hit in the midlife years. It may focus on one problem area or encompass all of life. Hold on 1 second, guys. It's about to rain. Let me put my window up. All right, guys. Hold on 1 second. I had to put that window up because it's pretty much about to rain. All right. So, hold on. Wait. Let me see where was I at. Okay. I'm going to read it again. It may focus on one problem area or encompass all of life. As we noted earlier, each season of marriage is accompanied by certain emotions, attitudes, and actions. The interaction of these three factors determines whether the couple will stay in the season or move from one season to another. In this chapter, I want to describe the emotions, attitudes, and actions that accompany the winter season of marriage. So what does the winter season look like in a marriage? So he said the emotions of winter. Some of the emotions of winter are hurt, anger, and disappointment, often accompanied by loneliness and a sense of rejection. All the emotions of a couple caught in winter reveal the coldness, harshness, and bitterness that grip the marriage. Let me introduce you to some couples who are experiencing the winter season of marriage. Listen to the way they describe their emotions. Hold on, guys. I think this will be a little bit better now. So, George is a 44-year-old husband from Jacksonville, Florida, who has been married for 18 years. My marriage is totally discouraging, he says. If I were not a Christian, I would probably give up. And let me just say, guys, like I said in the first video, I'm not married yet. God put this book on my heart to begin preparing and reading, and then he also put it on my heart to read it with you guys on this YouTube channel. So anything on this channel is trying to be positive, giving you guys the word of God. This man believes in the Lord. He's a Christian. He's based on biblical principles. So I just want to encourage you guys as I'm encouraged. So I'm not a marriage counselor. You guys know I have my bachelor's in psychology, but I'm no way am I saying I'm a marriage counselor. So no one don't come to me and say, well, this happened and this and that and that. I'm not here for that, guys. I'm going to be praying for you guys, speaking life, believing God for the best. But the purpose of me reading this book is just to encourage you guys, as God has been telling me to be prepared and be encouraged with this book. I'm encouraging you guys with it as well, because I feel like it's going to bless a lot of people. So that's the main objective. It's not to pick sides. It's not to say, well, you don't know this or that, or you're not married, so I keep saying this. We're reading the book. So I just want to put that out there. Amen. So guys, let's keep reading. So he says, totally discouraging. He says, if I were not a Christian, I would probably give up. I know that I should love my wife, but emotionally I am totally empty. It feels as if my wife does not love me, like me, or respect me. It seems that she just tolerates me, and sometimes it doesn't even feel that good. I feel terrible about our marriage. His wife Helen describes their marriage this way: not fun. Nothing seems to have any flow to it, but I really don't have the emotional energy to get something flowing. My husband has been without a job for a year and a half, and apparently is heading in no particular direction. We were in the same position 14 years ago when he finished graduate school. To have come full circle is extremely frustrating, and to have 3 children now who have to go through this only adds anxiety. I am very unhappy with the state of our marriage. Marilyn is 45 and has been married 5 years in the second marriage. She says, I feel disappointed and dejected. We don't talk, only argue, and never come to any conclusions or agreements on how to solve problems. Neither of us is happy. We disagree on money issues and child rearing. My 3 children live with us. He says that divorce is the only answer. I'm not sure. Mark has been married for 23 years, but says of his marriage, it is very discouraging. We disagree on everything. We are both bullheaded, and this has created many emotional conflicts. There is a coldness about our relationship. His wife Millie says Mark is very hurtful. We have had many years of resentment. I feel there has been more effort on my part than his. It seems to me that he would not listen and does not care about my feelings. He is so critical. At this stage, we spend little time together and give almost no affirmation or touch. Maria is 43. And has been married 9 years to her second husband. She says of her marriage, it hurts in so many ways and affects all aspects of my life. I carried it around inside, giving it to the Lord and trying to be optimistic and hopeful. We both want more, but we just can't connect. Emily has been married for 2.5 years, but expresses some emotional pain in winter when she says, I am terribly discontented. It hurts really badly at times. I'm just surviving day by day. I've given up hope. So hurt, anger, disappointment, loneliness, rejection, and sometimes hopelessness are some of the emotions that couples experience when their marriage is in the season of winter. So now we're talking about the attitudes of winter. Attitudes are the way we think about or interpret what we experience in life. We frequently speak of people having a negative attitude or a positive attitude. By attitude, I mean the way a person generally responds to the things that happen in life. The winter season of a marriage is characterized by negative attitudes. In winter, and my friend highlighted this too, in winter we tend to see the worst. We perceive, because she's married, she's married as well, and she, like she said, she had these books for years. I think she had like 5 books, and she gave them to other couples. She gave one to me. I think she has another one, but she had it for a while. So in winter, we tend to see the worst. We perceive problems as too big and positions as too entrenched. We think that disagreements have gone on too long and can never be resolved. We tend to blame our spouse for the decline in our relationship. If only he ... if only she wouldn't ... These attitudes foster emotions that range between mild discouragement and utter hopelessness. I met a man named Frank in Seattle, Washington. He was 24 years old and had been married for only a year, but he was extremely distraught about his marriage. It makes me feel like we are never going to make it. It just keeps getting worse. We fight 24/7 and we hit each other, and we have a baby. I can't go on like this, and I don't know what else to do. In his business, Frank was energetic and always willing to take on new challenges, but at home he was clearly thinking negatively. After 19 years of marriage, a woman named Martha said, I think I really tried to work on our marriage in the early years, but it seemed as if everything I suggested he interpreted as nagging. Nothing seemed to work, so I began to shut down. We've had some times of growth and increased intimacy, but mostly it has centered on what he wanted and doesn't involve my needs or desires. That continued pattern has left me not really caring what his needs are at this point. I am now waiting, probably unfairly, for him to put some energy into our marriage. Here is what Martha's husband, William, said. A year and a half ago, our marriage had just come off of the best 2 years we'd ever had. We were applying biblical principles to our marriage, and it was great. Martha was trying harder, and I lowered my expectations. Then I resigned my job with her support, but it has been a rough road ever since. Doors have not opened, and I'm currently working 4 part-time jobs to support our family. Apparently, I dropped the ball with communication, consistent affection, and having a plan for the future during the early months of this transition. Since then, Martha has shut down, and nothing I do is helping to turn it around. It seems there is a hole in her love tank, and nothing I do gets credited to my account. She says she is not holding on to unforgiveness, but that is what it seems like to me. Clearly, Martha and William are both plagued with negative attitudes, and neither is feeling the support of the other. Sometimes attitudes turn negative quickly. Truett had an offer of another job in a neighboring state. He and Mary discussed it and agreed that this would be a good move for them at this stage in their lives, so they made the move. However, shortly after unpacking, Mary found herself missing her friends and feeling irritated by all the changes that were forced upon her by the move. She complained to Truett about these things and told him how unhappy she was. Truett felt betrayed. He thought they had been in agreement about the move, so he felt that Mary was putting him in an unfair position. He could not resign so soon after accepting his new job, and yet he wanted his wife to be happy. Mary's negative, and guys, it is raining, so if you hear that on my, it's raining. So Mary's negative attitude became a barrier in their marriage, and within a year they were on the brink of divorce. How different things might have been if Mary had taken a positive attitude, sought to make new friends, and look for the good things in their new situation. Negative attitudes are like a bitter wind that contributes to the winter season of marriage. Now we're talking about the action of marriage. The actions of winter, So our natural tendency in the middle of winter is to avoid the elements as much as possible. When the weather turns frigid, we retreat inside for survival and wait for it to warm up or for the season to change. In a winter marriage, there may be a similar tendency to avoid the elements. Spouses may withdraw within themselves, hunkering down and trying to ride out the cold season, hoping for spring but not taking any positive steps to move their marriage towards spring. However, unlike the natural seasons, the seasons of marriage do not typically change without some positive action, unless it's a change from bad to worse. If you are experiencing winter in your marriage, your actions will tend to be divisive and destructive. Consciously or subconsciously, they are designed to hurt your spouse. Harsh words, violent acts, or withdrawal and silence are some of the actions of winter. I remember one woman who said to me, I was so angry because of Kurt's unfaithfulness that I went over to the apartment of the girl I knew he was seeing, found his car, and flattened off 4 tires with a butcher knife. I know I could have been arrested for that, but at the time I was so angry, I just wanted him to know how deeply he was hurting me. I also remember a husband who told me in the counseling office, I went over to the apartment where I knew she was living with another man, took the battery out of her car and threw it in a ditch. I was so angry and hurt. I met Melody in Racine, I'm sorry if that's where you live and I mispronounced it, I'm sorry, Wisconsin, at one of my marriage seminars. At the time, she was in her second marriage. The first marriage had been, in her words, physically and emotionally abusive. 5 years into her second marriage, she was certain that her marriage could be characterized as winner. I hate it. I am distant, and I don't know if my husband will react positively to anything I initiate. I'm tired. I've actually considered telling him we need to separate because I'm sure he will never talk civilly to me again. I'm not content at all with my marriage at this time. When I asked her to share an example of what was going on in the marriage, she responded, 2 weeks ago I asked him to stop teasing our son about being a mama's boy. He said I was just playing favorites. Initially, I just walked out of the room, but later that day, he said that I was mistreating one of my other sons. It was all downhill after that, and now we are barely speaking, and he avoids me. We are almost never in the same room except to sleep. When he is around, I feel he gets verbally abusive. At times, I have memories of my first marriage, and I wonder if the same thing is happening again. Chris and Amanda attended my seminar in West Palm Beach, Florida. And guys, that's the county that I live in, is Palm Beach County. So I haven't been here to none of his seminars, but just when I read it, I was like, oh, so he was here. But when did this book come out? I don't know. I'll tell you guys later. Let's just finish reading. So they had been married for 5 years, and it was the first marriage for both of them. She was 25 and he was 29. Amanda's comments on their marriage indicated that for her it was winter. I feel sad and hurt, even though at other times it feels like we really love each other. I'm not happy. I want to feel the love we used to feel. We have been through the birth of a child. My husband had a serious accident and was out of work for 3 years, and our house was destroyed by fire. Over time, we have grown apart. We have become very negative and continue to put each other down. Chris's comments were brief. I just know that my wife grew up in a fighting family and doesn't know any other way to live. She's also very demanding. For both Chris and Amanda, critical, demanding, and demeaning words indicated the coldness of their relationship. Joshua was 22 years old and had been married only 3 years when he said to me, my wife cheated on me repeatedly with one of my friends in the first 6 months of our marriage. The way I reacted was by cheating on her. This has caused a lack of trust, among other things, which led us to the winter season. I'm definitely not content with our marriage. I've made many bad decisions before, and I worry about making things worse. Bernice is 78 years old and has been married 54 years to the same husband, but she admits that her marriage is very, very painful. I feel rejected and discouraged. She said, my husband is a recovering alcoholic and is often depressed. He lies to me or he doesn't talk to me at all, and lately he's been getting into pornography. My heart is broken, but all I know to do is pray. If I try to talk with him, he is critical and blames me for all my problems. Yes, our marriage is definitely in the winter season. It's really sad after all these years together. In the winter season of marriage, communication fluctuates between silence and arguments. Critical words are spoken that further hurt the relationship. Verbal abuse sometimes leads to physical abuse. The sexual part of the marriage becomes a battlefield, and sexual unfaithfulness may strike the final blow to the marriage. A winter marriage is indeed cold, harsh, and bitter. Eventually, couples become detached emotionally and sometimes physically. They may sleep in separate bedrooms because they do not want to be close to each other. Sexually and emotionally, they are already divorced. If the warm winds of spring do not come soon, they may take steps to become legally divorced as well. Winter is often accompanied by feelings of desperation. Brian, who was in his mid-20s and had been married for 4 years, said of his marriage, we were obsessed with each other in the beginning. Now we are confused. I am trying to accept her, but just this morning she said that the devil had a foothold in her life. I want to help, but I don't know what to do. I am not content with our relationship. Communication is one-sided from her to me. When I do speak up, she finishes my sentences, so mostly I keep quiet. But I'm afraid of how far this might go. I don't push my opinions. I let her rule and don't understand why. Brian's wife, Christy, said, we allowed Satan a foothold in our lives by engaging in premarital sex. Now we are married, but I resent his touch, and there is a bitterness and anger that I realize only God can heal. I hope it comes soon. Marge is 45 and has been married 8 years to her second husband. I don't understand why or how it got this way, but our marriage is just in existence. We let the kids, 2 of his, 2 of mine, rip us apart in our early years. The kids are grown and gone now, all but one, but we are struggling to put our lives back together. I don't know how to fix our marriage. Typically, marriages do not begin in the winter season, and unlike the natural seasons, fall does not always precede winter in a marriage. A marriage can move directly from spring to winter. For Joni, it seemed that her marriage went straight from the honeymoon to winter. It was her second marriage, and she had a mentally challenged child from her first marriage. And we'll be closing soon, guys. While we were dating, John seemed to like Mandy. He was always kind to her. But after the honeymoon, it was like Mandy was suddenly a bother to him. He wanted it to be just the two of us. Well, that's not a possibility. He's living in a fantasy world. He even asked me if we could find someone to adopt Mandy. Why would I want to do that? She's my daughter. I think I made a huge mistake in marrying John. I don't know if we can ever get it together. He loses his temper and his words destroy me. He has to call all the shots in our lives. It's like my opinions don't matter to him. Winter may come early in the marriage, or it may come after 50 years. In between, it can occur many times. Couples can recognize it by their emotions, their attitudes, and their actions. The chart on page 19 summarizes the basic signs of a winter marriage. And then the positive side of winter, I'm gonna read like two more sentences, show you guys that chart, and then I'm gonna close this video. So the positive sign of winter is, if your marriage is in winter, it may appear beyond hope, but don't give up. Just as most people wouldn't lie down in the snow and wait to die, there's no reason to passively accept the coldness of a wintry marriage. And when I come back on here Wednesday morning, Lord's will, we're going to pick up on here. There is a way out. But let me quickly show you this chart. Winter emotions is hurt, anger, disappointment, loneliness, feeling rejected. Attitudes of winter is negativity, discouragement, frustration, hopelessness. Actions, destructive, speaking harshly, not speaking, violent. Climate of relationship, detached, cold, harsh, bitter. In the winter season of marriage, couples are unwilling to negotiate differences. Conversations turn to arguments, or spouses withdraw in silence. There is no sense of togetherness. The marriage is like two people living in separate igloos. So you guys let me know what you guys think about the book. What did you get out of the videos today? What stood out to you? What's a word of encouragement or something that you'd like to share? I'm praying for you all. I love you guys. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.